So we've been talking a lot about sealed system, and we're working on changing the compressor for the LG refrigerator. We got as far as taking the compressor out, and I don't know if you all saw the video that I produced on how to bend copper tubing, and that came about because when we looked at the compressor that was in that LG refrigerator, and I have it here, so I'll just bring it right here for you guys to see. When we looked at the compressor in this LG refrigerator and we saw some of the work that these people did in installing the compressor, let me see if I can, yeah, you can probably see it up here in the upper hand corner. We noticed quite a few of those tubes from the previous company that worked on it kinked the suction line. And that right there to me is a mess. I don't like to see tubes going all different directions and just looking like a mess. When I work on product, I actually take a couple extra minutes and straighten the pipes out. So I had recorded a video where I rebent that suction line piece. One second, I'll let somebody in. So I had the video where I rebent that suction line piece. Let me see if I can find that video. It minimized here somewhere. There we go. And I rebent this piece right here on the suction line and made it, and Brandon filmed it while I was doing it. And I copied it exactly, but I was sitting in a chair. It didn't look professional. To me, it wasn't a good enough video to even put online. So I decided to make another video, and in that video, I pre-bent a piece. And then if you've watched it, I took the time, and the one that I made afterward was almost identical in size and pattern. And you know, if you take your time, when that work looks like that, you know, customers are satisfied with the work. That, you know, they feel good about spending $200 or $300 when you're charging them that kind of money for a sealed system job. If your job looked like this, that's in this video here, and you're charging them, you know, a couple $100 to do a sealed system job on the refrigerator, this is, to me, is not acceptable. So, anyways, that video that came about was supposed to be part of the LG video, and we ran across the Christmas break. This is at my school, and it's not in our shop yet. So we've been filming that there, and then we came across the Christmas break. So we have this compressor out. We have a new one ready with an access valve on it, and we're going to start shooting next week the installation, the leak testing, pulling a vacuum, and charging the unit. And once we're done with this, then we're going to start producing the Samsung refrigerator. Now, the one that I did where I defrosted the evaporator, that was R600A. So we're going to do a little bit about using the lock ring tool and the lock ring fitting. And we're also going to go through diagnosing this refrigerator as well as charging it, and how do you handle 600A refrigerant when you're doing a sealed system job on a 600A unit. I also forgot that on this unit here, we're going to update the board with the jig as well. So we're going to show you how to update the LG refrigerator. Does anybody have any questions before I go through the stuff that we have to talk about today? Okay, let me, I'm trying to find the screen that I had, that I was sharing with you of my screen. I know it's one of these. Give me a second here. It's not that one. Which one of these is the screen I was showing you? 1 second, guys. Sorry, I apologize for that. Let me just... Where is my Google Meet? I don't see my Google Meet screen. Okay, there it is. All right, y'all still there with me at least? Sorry about that. So I want to talk about a couple of components before we produce this video. In this video, he had the recovery machine connected, but we didn't actually take the time to break down what are we doing with this recovery machine and what's hooked up and the status of it. So let me bring this video over to the other window so you can see it. And if you look, he's got the recovery machine set up here, and I have one on the screen which I'll point out some stuff close up to you. One of the first things is this little gray piece right here. This is the dryer filter. Now that doesn't normally come with the recovery machine. Some of them do, and there's a little tiny hose here that we use to attach the dryer filter. This is the inlet of the recovery machine.
I'm not seeing what you're describing.
Okay, you're not seeing it? Let me double check that I'm sharing my screen. I apologize. It disconnected here, so it should be this screen, share. And let me know if you see the screen now.
Yes.
Okay, so here Brandon has the recovery machine connected to the refrigerator, and this little device right here is a dryer filter. It has 1/4-inch fittings on it that are like male flare fittings, so they attach right to our hoses on our gauges very easily just by screwing on. This is a filter that you can purchase in your AC supply store. You could probably purchase them online. But the first thing is it sort of protects your recovery machine. Your recovery machine is basically a compressor and a condenser, which means just like our refrigerator here with a compressor and a condenser, the compressor suction line is this one here. So it's sucking into the recovery machine from the refrigerator on this line. So by putting a filter right here, you're sort of protecting your recovery machine from sucking in debris, especially like oil or anything like that that can contaminate your recovery machine. You want to take and try to protect it the best you can. Now, when you're not using a dryer filter, it's recommended to put the little caps on it like you cover your access valves, and keep the moisture out of your dryer filter, so when you're not using it, you want to protect your dryer filter as well. So this is the first line of defense on the inlet of your recovery machine. So inside of here you have a pump like a compressor, and you have a condenser coil. These machines can handle both liquid and liquid and vapor refrigerant coming in. So the compressor is going to suck that in, and it's going to pump it into a condenser. So the condenser takes vapor refrigerant and pumps it into liquid form. So on some of these units, they have solenoid activated valves, and when it reaches a certain amount of pressure, the valve's going to open up and let this freon go out into our recovery tank. And if I can zoom back, you can see the recovery tanks over here. And here he is hooking up the dryer filter, and you can see it close up. So let me just play that one little portion for a second.
In series with our inlet.
Okay. So let me see, I just get his hand out of the way. So you can see here, sometimes these filters may or may not have a Schrader valve, that little tiny valve you can press on inside the dryer filter. Remove all of those. One, the bent end of your hose here, the yellow hose, has the depressor to press down on the core, but this little blue hose we have on the back side of it does not have that. And if you're not pressing down on the core, it's not letting anything go through. The second thing is that having the cores in there will restrict the flow of refrigerant. It won't stop it if the valves are being pressed down, but it'll take time to recover. It'll take more time to pull a vacuum on the refrigerant system. It'll cause all kinds of problems, which is we don't have the time when we're doing a job like this because we probably got 5 other jobs to do that day. So do not have the cores inside of here as well as the valves on the machine. So this is the inlet of it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and actually show you the inlet of the machine here. I actually have that machine here with me. And let me go to here. Let me see which camera I am. This one right here. So you can see, I don't know if it's backwards. Could you guys see the words in and out regular, or you see them backwards?
It's correct.
Oh, okay, because on my screen it's backwards. So this right here is the inlet of your recovery machine. So a hose would connect there. If you don't have a dryer filter, you don't have to have one, but it's recommended to use one. I don't have it here with me today, but you would connect your hose right here. And then the other end, I got tape on it. I don't know how it's got tape on it. But the other end here is going to go to your set of gauges. Now, on your gauges, you have 3 ports. The center port here is the one port that your recovery machine, this hose from your recovery machine is going to go to. This center port is going to be the one that goes to your Freon tank when you're charging. This is also your vacuum pump when you're pulling a vacuum on the system. We don't use recovery machines to do that. We use a vacuum pump, and I got one here to show you as well. So this is like the process hose. The outer 2, which is both your low side gauge, the blue one, and your high side gauge, the red one, those are these here. These are the ones that go to the appliance. We don't take these off. We leave these on the refrigerator the whole time we're doing service. So this is the only one that we're going to connect to our tank, our charging, our recovery, our vacuum, and everything else. And so our hose would technically go like right here, the same hose. All right? So when we're recovering from a recovery machine, they have different little settings on here. Now, I don't know how well you can see that. Let me see if I can tilt it a little more because it's a little blurry to me. But on the inlet here, this word here says vapor, this one says liquid, and this one says closed. So right now, this valve is pointing towards the closed position on the machine. If I'm trying to recover and have this in the closed position, it's not going to do anything. It's closing this here. There's a valve right after this pipe, and the valve is right here. It's not letting it in. So when I go here, I can put it either on liquid input or I can put it on vapor input. Now, most of the time, we're going to recover the refrigerator because we're changing a compressor. Well, if the compressor's not running, you can recover both from the high and the low side or just the high or just the low. I recommend both because it's going to speed up the recovery process, but that's going to be mostly vapor refrigerant. It might have a little bit of liquid, but you're going to put that setting right here on vapor. Now, if we want to recover liquid, we would normally do that from the high side. That would be from your dryer filter here. Okay? And this dryer filter has an access valve on it. So you would have the refrigerator compressor running, and liquid would be here in the filter, and this would go to your high side gauge, the red one, and then you would recover into here, and you would set this valve to the liquid portion. Now, most refrigerators only have about, 4, 6, maybe 7 or 8 ounces of Freon. That's not much. That's barely a small cup of coffee. So if you're going to recover refrigerant, liquid or vapor is not going to make a big difference in speed because there's not a lot of volume. Remember, this machine isn't designed just to recover refrigerant from a refrigerator. It also does air conditioning systems, and some of them hold a couple of pounds of refrigerant. So to speed up the recovery time, we're going to recover as a liquid. As a refrigerator, it doesn't really matter if we're on vapor or liquid here. I'm trying to look at the screen and my hands are going backwards. But it doesn't really matter vapor or liquid. Vapor is going to work just fine. Okay, so you would put your inlet here on vapor. Now, I have a picture here of how this thing's supposed to be set up. Let me just find... now I don't see my picture. Give me a second here. I know I had it open. I'll have to search for it again. I had it open. I might have lost that screen. Let me just do a quick type here. Now I went by the model number. This is a Robinair Pro Max RG5410 recovery unit. Manual's lib, and I did a video on Manual's lib, has the service manual available for free here. And the first thing that I wanted to show you was, here's the valves. Now that's not in English. So what's our English instructions there? Maybe it's in English on another screen. Okay, but anyways, these are the three valves that I'm showing you. And this is the inlet valve here. It says in, vapor, and so forth. Now, the screen I wanted to show you was this one here. So this is showing you the appliance. It could be an air conditioner. It could be an AC system, a refrigerator. And your high and your low side is going to go here. Vapor is your low side. The liquid is your high side. And then this is the center hose. They have a sight glass here. We wouldn't use that. And then they have a dryer filter coming in. And then the output to recovery tank. Now the recovery tank, notice how it's sitting on a scale. Again, they say a scale must be used. Yes.
Sorry, not seeing the screen again.
You know, thank you. You know, switching from one screen to another, I got to keep remember that I have to click present. I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. No, I will. Okay, you can see it now. So this is the appliance that we're recovering from, showing both the vapor and the liquid going into our gauge. I'm going to have to let somebody in now. Now, how do I let them in? If I'm sharing on the same screen, I'm having a difficult time trying to control this. So going back to this recovery machine here, these two are coming from the appliance, going into your gauge, and then the center one, like I said, is going to go to the input of your recovery machine, and then the output is the other side of your recovery machine going to your tank. Now they're going to say a scale must be used to avoid overfilling the storage tank. So we have to measure the weight of the tank plus the weight of the refrigerant inside the tank. If that's a 30-pound cylinder, that's how much refrigerant the cylinder can hold. We also have to determine the weight of the tank. On the top of the handle of the tank is something called tare weight, T-A-R-E. That is the weight of the tank by itself without any refrigerant in it. And the reason why you need to know that is that by EPA standards, we can only put 80% of Freon in this tank when we are recovering Freon. So if it's a 30-pound cylinder, 80% is 24 pounds. So we can recover 24 pounds of Freon. But if the empty tank weighs 10 pounds, the total weight is going to say 34 pounds. So if I know that this tank, 80% full plus the weight of the tank is 34 pounds, if I knew this was 10 pounds right now, just as is, I don't need the scale when I'm recovering Freon from a refrigerator with 6 ounces. But if I'm getting close to that 80%, you got to put it on a scale to prevent overfilling, because there is a rupture disc usually on the top of the tank. And what that means is if it gets too hot, as it gets hot, the pressure will rise, that disc will pop off, and liquid refrigerant will start coming out of your tank here. So that's the connection of it, and I'll make this available for you guys. I want to get to, let me see if I can find the screen, the actual usage. Now, let's see how, I don't think I can rotate that. Here they're showing the filter coming into the machine. That's the inlet that I just got finished showing you. And they're showing how it goes into the pump. I don't have the ability to rotate it here on this screen. But it comes into the pump. It looks like a dryer or washer motor that pumps the pump externally. This pump takes the refrigerant and pumps it into a condenser, and it comes out. So basically your recovery machine is like your compressor and your condenser of your refrigerator. It takes it and condenses it as a liquid, and then a valve is usually located internal here, and when it reaches a certain pressure, it'll pump out automatically into your tank. So when you're hearing the compressor run, and I'm going to turn these on so you can hear the different sounds. When you hear them run, when it builds up enough pressure, you're going to all of a sudden hear da-da-da-da-da-da, that's going to be the output valve opening up and allowing the refrigerant to come into a tank. Now, let's go back real quick to that 80% full, because I do want to explain one thing to you. If your tank is 80% full, and because of the heat of the day and everything else, let's say that tank is 100 pounds of pressure, PSI. And as your recovery machine is sucking it out, it's pumping 100 pounds of pressure. So it's very hard for this recovery machine to pump more Freon into the tank if the pressure that it's pushing out is the same pressure as the tank. In doing so, they have another way to hook it up. And if you look here, what they're doing is they're sucking the refrigerant in this picture from the machine here. But they added a T that wasn't in the last picture. And I'll go back to show you that. Let me see if I can open that into another window. And I'll put them side by side so you can compare them. Oops. It doesn't want to. Okay, here we go. Now, if you can see the comparison of the two, and I'll zoom just a little bit more in here to make it a little bit bigger. If you see the comparison of two, these two lines coming in from the refrigerator go right into the recovery machine. But if you look at these two lines go in from the appliance and they go to a T. One T goes to the tank and one T is going to the recovery machine here on the input. And then the output goes back to the output of the tank here. Does anybody know why they added this T and they did that for this this type of setup? Anybody? Should I start picking on some names of people that are in here? All right, so if you don't know, this is what happens. When the tank starts to get so full with pressure, even though the recovery machine is condensing it to a liquid and pumping into the tank as a liquid, when it first enters the tank, it vaporizes. Not until you put enough in there will it stay a liquid. So what happens is, imagine filling a steel balloon. You're blowing into it. At one point, you can't blow no more. Now, if you could compress it as a liquid, you could fill up more refrigerant. But if it stays in a vapor form, it will not fill up. So what they're doing is they're going from the valve, and on the top of the tank, let me see if that video that I had with Brandon had a better picture of that tank. I don't think so, but I can find a recovery tank. Give me a second here. I'll bring it into screen as soon as I get a picture of it. Okay, so if you look at these recovery tanks here, notice that a lot of them have actually 2 valves on them. Let's see if I can find one I can show you a picture close up. And if you look here, you have a red and a blue valve. So one of these is liquid and one is vapor. So what you want to do is you want to go from the vapor hose back into the gauge. So the vapor one, if we look at those pictures we had before, the vapor one is the one that's going to the T here. So we're sucking refrigerant out of here, mainly vapor, and going into the recovery machine, but we're also taking the vapor off the top of the tank. So we're recovering vapor from both and mixing it in the recovery machine so we can compress it back into a liquid. Then when it comes out the other side, it pumps as a liquid. This is the only way we're going to continue to fill that tank up. There's only 2 ways you can actually do that. One is taking the vapor out of the tank and vapor out of the machine and compress them together and pump the liquid back. Or 2, you could drop this tank into a liquid nitrogen container and drop the temperature so low that all the vapor here turns into a liquid, and then it makes it easier to put Freon in there. But you don't have that ability to do in a customer's home. So remember I said the output, you'll hear a valve go as it opens up. So when it's doing that and it's sucking the vapor out of the tank, it's not sucking and pumping right back in all at the same time. Okay? So it's going to suck the vapor out of the refrigerator, suck the vapor out of the tank and condense it here, and then pump it back as a liquid separately. Otherwise, if it was sucking out and pumping at the same time, it wouldn't do anything. So it would suck the vapor out of here, suck the vapor out of the refrigerator, turn it into a liquid refrigerant, and pump it back as a liquid. But it's going to shut the input off while it's pumping the liquid in here until we keep compressing it and filling this tank up. Now if you see here, this is a different method that they call a push-pull method, where here they're trying to pull from the tank, pumping the liquid into the recovery machine and pushing it back into the tank over here. This doesn't work that great. It's not going to recover a good majority of refrigerant. You're going to have refrigerant trapped in both machines at the end of this job, where this setup here or this setup here is going to get what you need to get out to meet EPA standards. Now, some refrigerant will be trapped in the recovery machine even after you are done. And that's going to require you to shut off both valves before you disconnect your hoses. Now, let me go back to my screen to share my screen with you. Again, trying to find out which one of these screens is the screen that I'm demonstrating on. Can you guys see the recovery machine?
The screen is green.
Not on the main.
I know my screen's green. I'm trying to find that screen. I'm clicking stop sharing, but I can't find the screen.
See it now.
But I don't see it, and I don't know where it is. Let me go here. Each one of my screens. Not one of them is showing me the my Google Meet. So okay, but if you guys can see it, at least you know what I'm looking at here. So when we are done, before we disconnect the in and the outlet hoses, we want to close this one as well as close this one, which it's already closed. So if there's any remaining refrigerant inside of this machine, it will stay trapped and we won't release it into the air. Recovering is required by the EPA, but we used to recover refrigerant from machines even before then because we were saving it for reuse. If the compressor is bad but the refrigerant's not, we can reuse that refrigerant back into the refrigerator and not have to use new refrigerant. We're allowed to reuse the refrigerant we recovered, but according to EPA, we can only reuse that refrigerant in the product that belongs to the same owner, which means I took out a refrigerator, I changed the compressor, I can put it back in that refrigerator. But if the customer had another refrigerator, I could put that Freon in that refrigerator too, legally. Otherwise, they want you to use new refrigerant. Now, I do want to get my screen back up, and I really don't know why I can't find that screen to share with you guys. I apologize there. So here we got a recover and a purge setting. And when we're going to recover refrigerant, mainly we're going to have it on the recover setting. This is the setting we're going to use to recover the refrigerant from the refrigerator. We're going to open the outlet portion and we're going to put this to vapor. So both of these and this one are all going to be straight up, like you see here, to recover the refrigerant. Now this switch here is a high pressure select, and if you're using something like 410A, and that's what that one is there, that's mainly for like air conditioning, that the pressure coming out could be very high, so that if it got too high, this thing would automatically trip the pump off to prevent damaging the compressor. If you're just doing a refrigerator, you're either going to have 134A or a blended refrigerant. This doesn't matter. You leave this one off. Now over here, it has a low pressure cutout and a start button. I'm going to go ahead and just plug it in for a second. And it has a plug, like a computer plug, that fits on the bottom here. I'm just going to connect that up and plug it in. Now, the low pressure here, we really don't need that either. That's if we're dealing with really low pressure refrigerants, or if you are going to walk away from the recovery machine to go do something else and you're not going to be listening to it. It may only take about 10 or 15 minutes to get the required refrigerant out of there. But if you just turn it on, listen for a second what happens. Okay, that's only the condenser fan running. I have a lot of students who hook up this machine, and the first thing they do is they turn that on because it says on, and they think they're recovering. But that's nothing more than a fan. So we do want to turn that on, but then we want to press this start button so we can engage the compressor and listen to the sound here. So as that happens and as that runs, you're going to see the low side pressure gauge go up a little bit, and that's the refrigerant that's coming in from your inlet. So you can see how much pressure you're building up here. And your high side pressure is going to follow it. So if I'm at 40 psi, it's going to be over here between 0 and 100, about 40. But then what happens is as it pumps out to your tank, you're going to see this pressure drop down, and then this one won't be as high. So this is telling you what's coming into your recovery machine, and this is telling you what's going out to your recovery tank. Okay? So that's pretty much it. You just want to go ahead and turn it on. Watch your refrigerant gauges. When this gauge here, the low side gauge, goes down to a 10-inch vacuum, that is when you're done recovering. You go ahead and reach 10-inch. You're going to close your gauge. If it goes down to 10-inch vacuum and stays at 10-inch, then you have recovered enough refrigerant. You can now open up your refrigerator for service. If it starts rising back up, either you have a leak in your system or the refrigerant tank, refrigerant system may still have more Freon trapped in it, and you have to let your recovery machine run longer. Just open it back up, let it pull down. If it gets to 10, close it again. And once it stays at 10 or below 10 in a vacuum, then we're okay. So any questions on the recovery machine and the usage of the recovery machine? I'll go back to the picture here.
Mr. Zilk, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask or we're gonna talk about it later, but if we're gonna talk about it later, then you can just postpone. There are gauges with 4 ports instead of 3. Could you please expand on the use, the benefits, if it's useful in domestic refrigeration or not? Because I can't quite understand.
Okay, I'll bring that up in a minute, because when I talk about the Micron gauge, I'll show you how that would work. But I will show you other ways that we could utilize. In this picture, they're only showing gauges with 3 hoses, but you're talking about one that actually has 2 in the middle, and then your high and your low. And I'll bring that up when I go over the Micron gauge. And I want to do the vacuum pump real quick, and then we'll go into the Micron gauge and how to connect the Micron gauge up, as well as different ways to connect the gauges for recovering and why I do it a certain way. So let me get the recovery machine out of the way. Vacuum pumps. Can you guys see the vacuum pump all the way, like down to here too, where my finger is? I'll bring it down just a little bit more. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know why I cannot see my class page.
I see a quarter of it.
Okay, let me see if I can. I don't understand why I can't find that Google Meet window. I have the meeting open, obviously, because you guys can hear me, but I cannot find the window so I can maximize it and show you guys something. Give me one more second just to find it. Aha. No, it's not there either. I lost it. Let me just see if I can reconnect into it. No, it says no one's here, so okay. Well, anyways, I'll use this Google Meet window to show you guys what I can see. So this is your sight glass here for your oil. These lines here basically are watching your oil level. So you have to be on a level plane. I'll go ahead and use my speaker here to show you a little better here. So you can see the oil in here, and actually, does it look like I'm okay in oil, or should I probably add a little bit more? I think I need to add a little bit more. It should be with this oil.
Looks a bit low.
Yes, that's the oil level line. But not only can you see your oil level, but also you can see the clarity of your oil. Your oil shouldn't be dark brown. If it is, you're going to kill your pump. So down here we have a little screw, and if you take that out, that's a drain plug, and you can drain the oil out. And on the top here, this is your fill plug, and you can put fresh oil in here, and you can redo the oil. You want to make sure that this plug here, and it's not screwing down tightly, so let me just fix it. You want to make sure that this is on tight, because it will affect your vacuum, as well as this is on tight when you're done. So this is just draining and filling, and this is your oil level. Always check this, always, before you pull a vacuum on the machine. Now, when do we pull a vacuum on a refrigerator? Anybody know when? Like in what stage or process of servicing?
After recovery.
Not after recovery. Let's go.
Put new blueprint in.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Before you put new refrigerant in when you're testing it.
Yes, before you put your refrigerant in. But let's take a look. Okay, so let's just say he just changed the compressor. He just brazed it in. Obviously, he didn't on this video, but he just brazed it in. Once you're finished brazing, what do you think the very next step would be? Do we pull
Test
it
for
back?
leaks.
Okay,
Test for leaks.
how do we test for leaks?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen, very good. We would use nitrogen to test for leaks. Can someone give me the pressure that we would run inside the refrigerator, the maximum test pressure, and why?
I believe it's 100 psi, but don't know why.
Okay.
125.
No, 100 would be about the best, only because the evaporator is made out of aluminum. And if you exceed the pressure, you can damage the evaporator in the freezer section. I've had students mess up this discharge line. You can see the video screen, right? Or no?
No.
Okay, how do I share the screen? I'm telling you, with this Google Meet, I'm having so many issues. No, if I say present now, it's not going to share the screen. What if I take the camera and just do this? Can you guys see it now?
Yeah, it's a little bit low.
Yeah.
A little low? How about there?
Yes.
Okay, so the discharge line's right here and the suction line's right there. I've had students flip the lines and put the suction on the discharge and the discharge on the suction, and they turn the compressor on, and while they're putting Freon in, all of us hear, bah! Split the evaporator. So you need to make sure that you put these lines on correctly. But if you go over 100, 120 psi, you're going to damage the evaporator. So when we're leak testing, we're going to leak test. Now I'm going to put my camera back for a second. And I don't even know if the camera's looking at me properly, but you guys don't need to see my pretty face. So we're going to leak test with about 100 psi so we don't damage the evaporator. But a lot of people, they want to put the compressor in and hook up a vacuum pump right away and start pulling the vacuum. They say, well, can I check if I have a leak, it's not going to hold a vacuum? Yes, that's true. But if you're pulling a vacuum and the system has a leak, what are you doing to your system? What's going on inside your system?
Contamination.
Air and water.
Yeah, you're getting air and you're getting moisture into your system. You're messing up your new dryer filter, and that's getting in your oil, and you get moisture and water in your oil. Water and oil don't mix, so that's a bad thing. So by putting nitrogen in there, we just use soap and go around all of our fittings here. And once we put soap on it, if it bubbles, we can just dump that nitrogen into the air. We don't need to recover it. We fix it with a torch, and then we nitrogen test it again. Once it seems to hold pressure at 100 psi and it doesn't drop, then we can dump it out. Now we're going to pull a vacuum on the system. So 100 psi so it don't break. And the nitrogen's going to keep you from sucking moisture and getting moisture into your system. So when we hook up a vacuum pump, we like to hook up one of these. Have you guys seen Micron gauges like this before?
Yeah, online.
Okay. I don't know if you can see it, but give me a second. I need to get that Google Meet window open that you guys are in so I can share my screen. I still have some things to show you, and I don't know why my computer totally logged me out of it. Give me 1 second here. I'm just Okay. That's I don't know how to turn it off. I'm trying to find the original Google Meet, and I don't know if you guys can. Hey, here we go. I found it. It showed up this time. Okay, so on the Micron gauge, and I'm going to go to present my screen now. On a Micron gauge, they come with this T fitting. You see this T fitting right here next to the Micron gauge. And so what we want to do...
Can't see it.
You can't see it? I'm sharing the screen.
I could see you with the gauges in your hand. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I did say share screen though. Let me see. I'm here. So you can see this.
Yes.
Now if I click present now, your entire screen, and click here and click share.
Nothing. Still you with the gauges in your hand.
Okay, so do the rest of you see like the gauges and stuff? In the background?
You with the gauge.
Okay, but if I take, are you seeing the field piece?
No.
No.
I don't know why it's not presenting. I'm having a problem. How about here?
Nothing has changed.
Okay, I press stop presenting. I'm gonna go present now, entire screen. Click his. I'm trying again. I don't know what happened to my Google Meet. I might have to switch to Zoom. Can you see that? Can you see it now?
No, still the same.
Sir, before when you went to the participants of the meeting, I could see two Richard Zilka's account. Now there is only one. So
I see two. It says present you, and then another one that says you. Can't show you in the site on this layout. I don't understand. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. And I'm gonna click on this one. And present now. Okay, let's see some here. Can you see the recovery machine in the picture on the screen?
No change. Still just you with the microphone in front of you.
Okay, guys, stay in the meeting. I'm going to close this completely out and try to open up a new window and come back in, okay? Please bear with me 1 second. And you guys aren't there. Okay. I just had a terrible time with this recording here. I'm gonna stop the recording.